Welcome everyone. Thank you for coming out. Today is International Women's Day 2013. So I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. This is the beginning of our Courageous Women's Clothing Drive. And we have gotten so much clothing donated already. I just thank every single one of you for bringing the things that you brought today. And I thank you all for volunteering, because this afternoon we know we're going to get a whole lot more things brought to us. So I want to introduce myself. I am Tamia Dow. I am a retired domestic violence detective with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. And I am, I guess you would say, a world traveler. And the way I came up with the idea for us celebrating International Women's Day today together was last year I celebrated it in Dhaka, Bangladesh, as part of the International Association of Women Police. We put together a march that had over nearly 1,000 police women from throughout the Asian region that came and marched on behalf of education for women and children. So I wanted to stay with that theme this year, so we are doing this clothing drive on behalf of women and children. The reason I called this Courageous Women's Clothing Drive was because you have to think about this. Right now, each and every one of us are comfortable in our homes. We go home every evening, we go to bed, we see our loved ones, we're comfortable and we love our environment. Yet sadly, there are some people who are in environments that have abuse and violence in them. So going home is not a joyous occasion, and being at home is not the best situation for them. They are living a nightmare. They are living in fear. So it takes courage to make the decision to get out of a situation that you know is bad for you, whether it is abusive and it's bringing you down, or whether it is violent and it's bringing you down. Yet the other concern we have too in our clothing drive for the courageous women is that these women make a decision to leave these dangerous environments. Once they make that decision to leave, oftentimes there are little ones involved, which means children. And in domestic violence situations, we often forget about the children. So think about the courage it would take for a woman or a man who's being subjected to violence in their home environment to actually pick up not only themselves, but pack up their children and leave an environment that is unhealthy for both them and their children. That takes courage. And that's why we've named this the Courageous Women's Clothing Drive. Why are we collecting clothing? Because oftentimes when it's time to leave one of those violent situations, you leave with just the clothing on your back. You run out the door, you grab your child, and you go. And guess what? Thank God there is help. And what the help is in the form of NGOs, which are non-governmental organizations, and in our case here in the U.S., they're domestic violence shelters. So locally here we have several domestic violence shelters. And as a domestic violence detective, I had the opportunity to work with several domestic violence shelters. So today's drive is collecting clothing and toiletries to benefit the women and children at the local domestic violence shelters. Now when I say toiletries, again, I want you to envision you running out of your house with just the clothing on your back. Think of a fire. When it's a fire, you don't have time to grab your valuables. What you have time to grab is yourself and leave. So these shelters provide for these women, these children, and there's also shelters for men that provide clothing. They provide vocational training. And I want you to hear this, ladies out there, vocational training. Because oftentimes I would have my victims tell me that they didn't leave a situation or stay in a situation because they are financially unable to move on or go to another situation. What I want to tell you is, don't believe that from your abuser. You can be educated, you can learn a vocation, you can be empowered to be a woman on your own, and you can be empowered to take care of your children. safely and in a loving environment. What I want to tell you is love is not abuse. If you are in a situation with someone who says they love you, then there should be no form of abuse or violence involved in it. I'm adamant about that. Please believe me when I say to you, there should be no violence inside of a loving relationship. So today we are providing the opportunity. For me, I believe that opportunity is key. Education is the second key. Now I'm putting out education here, and I've had the opportunity to go all over the world and teach domestic violence training. I have taught domestic violence education and trained police officers, corrections officers, civilian police employees, citizens through citizens academies and citizen presentations, and also spoke to local women's groups. And the reason I do this is because, to me, education is key. And also to my colleagues who have come together with me on this event today. So I will have a few colleagues come up here and share their story and their part in this involvement. Yet I want you to know that my heart and my passion is for you, the potential survivor, because right now you're a victim, but don't let that keep you down. I am saying to you, it is not your fault. Yet, if you stay in the situation and do not seek help, because there is help, then examine your heart, because you're affecting not only yourself, but you're affecting your family members and your children. So I encourage you to get the education. Wherever you are and you hear this message, if you're not in Las Vegas, Nevada, get on Google. Go to the library. Look up domestic violence shelter, domestic violence education. Get yourself safe. Get yourself out of that environment. Please do that for me. I don't want to see another domestic violence related homicide no time soon. So, with that, I would like to welcome up my colleague. I'm going to bring up here, and she's going to tell you quite a bit about herself, Reverend Charmaine Lee. She is a local speaker, a published author, and a well-respected domestic violence advocate. Charmaine Lee.
Well, as you know, that we're definitely here to be support of you. This information is not only about myself, but more for you, because there are so many people out there that are searching for information and they're seeking to get guidance. And a lot of times we have so much that's out there, but if you go to the locations that to me I was speaking about, it is a starting point. It is a way to begin to take action in your life. And so a little bit about me, I am also a survivor of abuse. And in fact, I have a meetup group that's called Victors of Abuse, because I believe that since we have come together to team up, to get education, to be who we are, and to stand up with our own voice, no longer being silent, this is a place that we can gather, have a meetup, and support one another. You would be surprised just how many women still will hold themselves back and not take action. Why? Call it fear, call it reservation, call it whatever it is. Usually, 9 times out of 10, it is taking action because the fear is behind it. And so my book, Gardenias Bruise Easily, talks about the experiences that I first had encountered. Mine began when I was a baby in my mother's womb. So we all have different stories, but your story truly is very, very important. So when we get together and we have these kinds of events, it's not so that we can just sit here and say, oh, woe was me, or here's what I did, or have like a one-up. I did this, this person did this is what happened to me, this is the tragedy. No, any abuse, I say, any abuse, that includes, as we call it, bullying, which is very evident in our schools, but nothing is being done about it. So any type of abuse, I'm here to stop that kind of abuse, to get not only those women and children and men who want to stop this because they have been the victim, or they have now become the survivor or the victor. It's not just about that. It's about how are we going to come together and educate someone. Because when I'm walking through the mall and I see a couple and they're only 16, 17 years old, and they're arguing in the middle, and he's using a form of manipulation in order for her to conform to his request, don't leave my side, that is a form of abuse. Bullying in any form is a form of abuse. And we have it in the workplace, and we have it in the schools. And the biggest one that we here in Nevada are not aware of, we're not aware of because the statistics aren't really available, currently, human trafficking. It's a big one because there's a form that's happening out there that deals with different ways that they look for people who are abused. They're the first ones that they look for so that they can manipulate or do whatever is needed to conform to their needs so that they can continue to have their human trafficking or do whatever it is that they need. But I'm here mostly, as I said, how do I assist my community? How do I assist the people who live here? I can talk about other things, and I'm an activist in a lot of different groups because now it's time to have a voice. No more silence. How do we educate our children? And that to me is dear to my heart. I have a granddaughter who's 15 and she's experienced bullying. So how do we get the message out there that it is no longer acceptable? So we're not here for International Women's Day because I'm here or Tamia's here or our crowd's here. We're here for you standing here together as a whole, hand to hand, shoulder to shoulder to make something happen. I know for me, I see the statistics and you see that, it's either just recently we had a murder-suicide because of a situation with domestic violence. When is it going to stop? When are we going to become active in every situation? That means if you see something, are you going to stop it? It was just very interesting how they had a videotaping of this person getting beat up in the elevator, and it was being shown as an evidence of how people would react. And they saw him in the elevator, a lot of people reacted, and majority of them walked away, and then some maybe called the police. So what are you going to do? What action are you going to do so that it is not about us being here to say, well, we're going to be your voice, and I'm going to continue to be the voice for many survivors as well as those who are going through it. Because I know that there's a lot of different perspectives that they have to go through that they can't speak on what's going on because it has to be very private. But when we know that the abuser is somebody that we love, whether it is our parent or our lover or spouse, whoever it is. Did we experience some form of it? Yes. If there was any kind of suppression, yes. So the voice, for me, you can know more about me of what I went through. I'm here to just make sure that there's no more silence, that we put something behind it, that we take action. And that was a big one for me. It's like, what action are you willing to do? And when Tamia asked me about the International Women's Day, and we did the 1 billion rising, it wasn't for me just to say, okay, let's get together and let's do an event. I'm here because I want to make a difference, and it takes one by one by one. And as long as we decide, it'll happen because we put it out there not as a dream, as an action to take the steps to make a difference. Well, a little bit about me. I definitely had gone through abuse when I was a child. So it's been something that has been repetitive. But I didn't know that when I was a child. I just felt left out. So at 5.5 years old, it was my first experience with wanting to commit suicide. I actually wanted to stand in front of the train. And again, I'm going to refer to my book because it gives you a little bit more of how I came up with that thought process. So Gardenias Bruise Easily, take time to read it and you get to see different things that occurred that actually related to abuse. But as time went on, I just felt left out. I felt like I wasn't a part of a family. And so what I found is that time went on where my mother would tell me how I needed to smile, how I needed to talk, how I needed to be. And she would say that, you know, you cannot smile at anybody because if they're saying that you look beautiful, is mainly that it's a curse. So a lot of my emotions and feelings were in a status of control of how I had to be. And these were just, some of them were subtle, some of them were just overboard, as far as abuse. I got the belt, taken to me, and there were so many different things that had occurred to me. But then as I grew up, I said, I'm going to get out of this, and it's not going to happen to me as an adult. I'm going to keep going. So I'm going to find relationships that are loving. And as I became an adult, I realized I drew to me abusive relationships. So my first abusive relationship was so many different things. I went through stalking. I went through being beaten. I was manipulation. A lot of demeaning statements. I was torn apart in every which way you could think of, to where I was not just in fear. I actually had been in rage because of the fact that I couldn't speak up. I couldn't get out of my relationships. I was, stalked all over the city. I'd be in a car and he'd hit me, follow me and hit the back of my car just so he can get hold of me. And also he kidnapped me and I had to play, the dead dog for a while. And that was to play up to him so that I could be released. But he took me to a city with no money, no nothing, and kidnapped me so that he felt that if he put me somewhere, I would just end up with nothing and maybe die, or something would happen to me. He just wanted something brutally or vicious to happen to me. And so I thought I would get out. I didn't know how to get out of that. I thought I could, but then everybody looked at me so funny, and there was not a lot of people who were open to helping those who have been abused, and a lot of people didn't want to help me because he would truly stalk me, stalk my sister, stalk my family, stalk me in every way you can think of. And so when I finally made a decision to leave, I did, and it happened to be with some help, and then with that help, that person ended up getting brutally beaten. And I don't mean just beat up, I mean from head to toe. So it was a message to me, everybody that I love, it was a message to me to let me know that they were watching. And again, this was more of a cultural thing, like a gang type thing, that they stuck together, and if I wasn't going to do or comply with them, it was something that they were going to make sure my life was miserable. So I ended up moving, and I ran away, but it didn't resolve the problem. I attracted another relationship, and with that relationship, I thought, oh, I'm over this. This is not going to happen, and I ended up pregnant, and here it is, stuck. And he had said he would never be abusive, and again, the story repeats itself. So how many relationships did I have that had to do with abuse? There was multiple, and I just didn't know how to stop it. I didn't know where to go, and the places that I did go that were professional basically had said that, there's something wrong with you, you have to do this. There was so many red tape that I had to go through. So there wasn't really firsthand assistance that was kind and compassionate so that I can take those steps. And so as the story goes on, yes, I had multiple relationships that did not stop with alcohol abuse, with sexual abuse, all kinds of things. It was as if I was a magnet to abuse. But nobody teaches you these things. And so I had to literally decide when enough was enough. I became the warrior in how I was going to stop the abuse, because I noticed that even though I was a single mom stuck alone, I was noticing that I was having reactions as an abuser would towards my kids, as if I had no control. I just started to react. So my children had some effects of me being the abuser. I had to stop that. There was times where I would pass out. There were times when I would just, my whole body would just, I'd end up with headaches just so that I could find a way to stop myself. So my story about being a victor, not a victim, is about that, because I had to do something. I had to take some kind of responsibility, because everybody that was a professional was saying there's something wrong with you, because I had attracted multiple abusive relationships. So there was only one that was a marriage counselor who said, "You're loved. There is nothing anywhere in any profession that can tell you you are otherwise. You just have to decide that that's who you are, and what happened to you was unfortunate." It was those wisdom, those words that actually continued my journey to say, enough. I will continue to find different ways to be victorious over this abusive attraction. And when you have 3 kids, sometimes it's very, very difficult. Sometimes it's almost self-defeating, and especially where, even though my mother helped me and my father didn't really understand, it was not an easy road. There are times that I starved. There was times that my children didn't have anything. We didn't even have medical attention for my young daughter, because everybody was not educated about what abuse is. Not like we have today, but yet still today, we want to go ahead and take action and become not just survivors, but victors to help other people. And the more that we help other people to become, victorious in their situation, we can together cease this abuse, cease some of the, thought processes out there that, oh, well, that person's been abused. They're going to have to decide how they're going to get out of it. They are going to have to do it on their own. There's so many organizations out there. No, it's every one of us being proactive. I might have one piece of the solution, somebody else might have another, but collectively, this is how that person becomes the victor. This is how I wrote my book, so that you can understand not only who I am, but the different perspectives of what happened in abuse. Where did it come from? It didn't just arise one day. And even though that I became a victor from abuse, it is so important to give the abused families, women, men, children, a voice so that they can stand up for themselves, because sometimes going through the red tape is so demeaning. So it's a way for us to just get together. Gardenias bruise easily. It's to get to see different things that I put in place for you to have some concepts, and to be able to, just have a thought for the day. And those are the things that help me through growing. So if you want more information, I do coaching, and that's my forte. And I also do hypnotherapy and some mental emotional releases, just so that you can get through the processes to release what it is that's holding you back, or maybe it's still holding you back through fear. But there is some exercises that I can give you. So get a hold of me, I'm at amplifylifefocus.com, or you can get a hold of me by phone at 702-251-8200, or go to my Facebook and go to Charmaine Lee. And let's be victorious warriors. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and share this floor. And this is our next speaker, who's Tish Mazel. She's a lifestylist and coach, as well as a survivor of domestic violence for over 20 years. So let's welcome Tish Mazel.
Hello, I'm Tish Mazel, and I'm also a survivor of domestic violence. Been in relationships throughout my life, and violent relationships. My family, all of my family have been abused in some kind of way. I find that we always put a label on it and say that it's just a man, or it's just a woman that abuses us, but it starts from when we're children. Abuse is abuse, no matter what it is, and love is love, and it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt, and I felt that when I was in relationships, I thought that I can get gifts. I received gifts, and that's how they got me first. They showed me the love at first, and then after that, tried to lower my self-esteem, always told me that I was something that I wasn't. I was trying to find things in my relationship that I didn't find in my house, or that I did have in my home, that just wasn't a positive. But I thought that it was, because I thought that was love. It's unfortunate that we all experience different things, and my son, he wrote a letter. In my last relationship, it was very abusive, and he wrote the letter saying, "Real men," saying that men don't abuse women. And he dedicated to all the women that had been abused, because I cried all the time. I couldn't even get up out the bed. It just felt like I couldn't breathe most of the time. And I had to get out of that relationship, and that's one of the reasons why I moved here to Las Vegas, because I didn't know where else to go, because I knew if I wouldn't have left Missouri from where I'm from, and I didn't go far away, that he would have followed me, because he stalked me all the time. He used to show up in places that I never knew that he even knew that I was there. It was unfortunate that, I had to build myself back up. Financially, I didn't have my business anymore, because he wanted to make sure that I didn't have any money, so he can keep me low. And I had to build myself back up gradually, one day at a time, and just encourage myself. I wrote journals. I spoke to people that was also going through it, but I had to get within myself to love me first. And love, like I said, it doesn't hurt. Now I know that, but I didn't think that was when I was younger or when I was growing up. I just thought love was just love, and it was gifts, and it was, someone telling you something nice for 1 second, and you fight and you argue, because that's what I grew up in, arguing, fighting. Don't stop the cycle. Stop the cycle of abuse, because this is an ongoing cycle. Don't stay in a relationship thinking that it's helping your children, because it's not. Kids hurt just as well as adults do. I help people throughout my life now, and I've always helped other people from inside out, showing them self-love. Children are just as well as victims as we are as adults, and they need that support system. So I work with women to empower women, to let them know that they can love themselves and they can love others, and they don't have to be abused, and they can be alone, and not have to deal with that abuse. It's just self-love, and that's where it starts. Love is love. You can contact me on Facebook, tishmazel.com, or you can contact me on tishmazel@gmail.com. My number is 702-900-8474.
Thank you. Thank you. So as you can see, everyone, the stories are different. I can speak to you as a domestic violence detective because I'm the one who gets to speak to all of these different women and hear all of their stories. And actually, in a way, I feel very blessed by that. It's sad, the stories that I see and I hear it's great when I hear the success stories and I see how empowered people are. And when I hear that people listen, because people call us as domestic violence detectives and as advocates, and they ask for advice. What should I do? And then we give them that advice. Yet here's the thing, and I believe I mentioned it earlier. Knowledge is nothing unless it's applied. And it's even less when you don't share it. So I stand on what Zig Ziglar says. Zig Ziglar says that if you help, actually he says, help as many people as you can get what they want. And if you do that, then you will get what you want in life. So with that, I would like to encourage you to listen all the way through to what is being said in this press conference. There are so many unique stories that we are sharing here today, and one of them may speak to you. And we really appreciate each and every person who is here because we know that in some way, domestic violence has touched your life. So up next, I'd like to introduce my friend Rochelle. She's going to come and she's going to tell you a little bit about her victory story. Rochelle.
Hi. I stand here today very honored to speak to such courageous women and men. And I don't stand here just as a survivor, but I stand here as victorious. My story is really unique. I was in a relationship for 10 years plus, and during that relationship, I thought that it was okay for someone to hit me. I thought it was okay for someone to verbally attack me. But it's not okay. It sent me into a world that I did not know how to come out of. It sent me into a world of silence. And the silence alone was killing my very soul. I cry tears now because I'm happy. I'm happy that I was able to get out of the situation that I was in. It took one phone call for me. One phone call that I had had enough. I was enough of being abused. I had enough of someone coming at me in my face. I had had enough. So I made one phone call to 911, and they were at my door. And that was the best step that I could ever take to get myself out of a situation that I had no control over anymore. And that's the thing. Being the victim, we still continue to try to control the situation because we're thinking that it's all about us. It's me, it's my fault. And that's what I'm led to believe. But it's not true, it's not my fault. It's not my fault, and nobody has the right to hit me. Nobody has the right to put words in my face and attack me verbally. That buck had to stop there. And I am glad that I made the phone call. It led me to two different shelters. One was Safe Nest, and one was Shade Tree. And there, I found hope. I found hope in the midst of the storm that I was in. I was able to find some hope. And I got the courage just to climb back out of a hole that was so deep. I learned how to communicate with people because at one point I had all of my friends were gone. And I had to reestablish relationships that were damaged by staying in the relationship that I was in. And I'm so grateful to God that I can stand here not be quiet. And the silence is the part that kills us. So if there is a lady or a gentleman here that's in an abusive relationship, don't settle for less. Your value is so important. God values you. God values you. If you just need someone to talk to and talk your way out of it, you can find me on Facebook. I'll talk to you, I'll love with you, I'll pray with you, and we'll get through it together. You don't have to do it alone. That's the best wisdom that I can give you. Thank you. To reach me is at my Facebook page, and you can look it up by searching for RICHELLE Shelter, SHELTER @yahoo.com.
So as you can see, each story is unique. Your story is unique. And what I want you to understand about this Courageous Women clothing drive is that you may be listening to me right now. You may have stumbled upon me on YouTube. My audience has actually come here on purpose, thank you. And you're thinking, what can I do? Or right now, that's not you. Yet think about the women, the men, the children that are witnessing and living with abuse. And then think about the cycle of violence. Think about what it teaches our little ones. If they watch, Rochelle was up here sharing, if they watch their mother being abused, Tish was up here sharing the heart of her son as he watched her being abused. We pray that he doesn't continue that cycle. We pray that Rochelle's children don't look to continue in that cycle. We pray that Charmaine's children don't look to continue in that cycle, because here's what you must understand. We'll say, I would never treat my boyfriend or my girlfriend like that. I would never put up with what my mom or my dad did. I would never. Yet let me tell you, from experience as a domestic violence detective dealing with cases and victims and abusers, sadly, you do. Because you remember and you revert to what you remember. So if you remember Dad's response to someone speaking back to him or being upset and angry was to lash out and punch things or punch people, then guess what? So I'm saying this to the victims and the abusers. And let me tell you, I'm unique in my advocacy because I advocate for counseling for both the victim and the abuser. Because the abuser never heals if you never send them, or they never go for counseling, or they never see themselves as an abuser, right? The victim never fully heals if they don't get help. Sometimes you just leave the situation and say, I left and I'm good. Yet I've spoke with many a woman, and they have told me that they needed a little bit more than just leaving. Don't be ashamed of counseling. Don't be ashamed to get help. And these shelters that we are donating this clothing to also provide counseling. And don't worry if you don't have the finances for this counseling, because they will help you, okay? So I'm putting this out to all of you. There is really no excuse. There is help, there is hope, there's resources, and there are people who care, because there's a room full of them right here, and there are shelters full of them throughout this city, throughout this world, where you are too. So here's what I want to leave you with. I thank everyone for being here today. I really, really do appreciate what you have done today by bringing the clothing and the toiletries and the things to bless these people in the shelter, and also by being present and hearing these victorious women's stories. You heard courageous women's stories today, and there's many, many more. And guess what? Charmaine and I are working together, and there's many, many more to come. This is not the first in our educational events, and it definitely won't be the last. So we look forward to you joining us. My contact information is I am Tamia Dow, and you can contact me at tamiadow@yahoo.com. That's TAMIADOW @yahoo.com. You can find me on Facebook at Chaplain Dow. It's CHAPLAINDOW on Facebook. Please friend me. Please join this healing community that we're in, and please help me get the word out. I am available to train, and I will travel where you are. You might have to help me out, but I'll be there, because I sincerely believe, as Zig Ziglar says, that if you help enough people get what they want in life, you will get what you want. And what I want is to see strong, courageous, victorious families out there. And I said families. This is for the men, this is for the women, this is for the children, okay? Let's make it happen. Have an awesome International Women's Day. Yeah!